John Lusk here of Lusk Archery Adventures. Series testing, successful hunting. Well, today I'm going to be testing the very first broadhead of 2022. I've got a lot of broadheads lined up, but this is going to be the first one because it's being released right now as I post this video. And it's another one by VIP Archery, Veteran Innovative Products, an all veteran-owned company, which is pretty cool. And they've come out with a few new heads that I'm really eager to test. This is the first one. It's called the Ranger. It's a two-blade mechanical, and I suppose you can call it a hybrid because it still gets a significant cut in the closed position, but then it expands to quite a big cut in the open position. So let's zoom on in here, and I'll go through some of the design features and specifications, and then I'm going to put it to the test using my new 2022 testing regimen, okay? And I'll be explaining a bit about that as I do it, but for a more detailed description of how I do it, why I do it, and all the scoring involved, please read about that in the description box in this video. And as always, I'm going to be using my Bowtech SR6 set at 72 pounds for most of the shots, but then on the layered cardboard, I go down to 65 pounds just because I don't want to blow it right through into my wall. And for arrows, I'm using Bishop Archery FO Seeking arrows for most of the shots, but then I use the Bishop Fad Eliminators for the really hard impact shots because they're just so doggone tough. All right, let's check out the new VIP Ranger. Here's a good look at the Ranger, the two-blade mechanical by VIP, and as you can see, it's a really wicked looking head, and it's loaded with unique design features. So let me start here first with the materials. Now, this is the 100 grain model. They also make a 125 grain model with the same materials, and then they make a 175 grain model that's exactly the same, only it's made completely of stainless steel. Now this one, the 100 grain model, has a ferrule made of 7075 T6 aluminum, which if you're going to use aluminum for weight purposes, this is a good one to use because it's stronger than some steels. And then the tip is a titanium grade 6, so really good strength to weight ratio and a nice strong tip. And then the blades are 0.035 inches thick of 440A cutlery steel, brought to a Rockwell hardness of 56. So really high Rockwell hardness and a really fine steel there for a stainless steel. Okay, now some of the design features. First of all, in the closed position like it's in now, the cut diameter by my measurements is 1.03 inches, so just over an inch. In the fully open position, the blades expand to 2.4 inches of cut. So really nice size cut in the open position. Now the way this head deploys is what really sets it apart. It doesn't use any O-rings or any bands or anything like that, any retention clips, but rather it's got this interesting internal inertia system. It operates similar to a seatbelt in a car. You know, a seatbelt in a car, you can move around freely until you slam on the brakes. And when you slam on the brakes, there's a little mechanism that continues to go forward, and that causes the seatbelts to lock up. Well, when this head begins to penetrate, the speed obviously slows down. There's a little internal component that still moves forward, and that causes the blades to unlock and to deploy. So what happens as it begins to penetrate, if it hits something hard, the blades can kind of come back just a little bit, and that protects the strength of the blades on a hard impact. There's a little bit of give there to them to absorb that hard impact so they don't bend or break as readily. And then after that, as they pass through, they spring forward like that. And so it's really interesting to see how they deploy like that. And it's with that internal inertia system and a spring. So there's a spring that is under tension when the blades are in the closed position. And then once that mechanism is deployed, as the broadhead slows down, that spring is released. And so the deployment of the blades is not taking away from the penetration of the broadhead. See, in a lot of other broadheads, most other mechanicals, as they penetrate, some of that energy that was used for penetration is what it takes to deploy the blades. But in this, it's kind of just the opposite. It's penetrating, and then the blades are deployed by another stored energy in that spring, so it doesn't take away from the momentum that's going to help the penetration. But actually, it generates even more energy, or releases more energy to spring those blades forward. So really creative. So I'm really eager to see how this head performs and put it through all the tests that I'm using for 2022. Let's check out the Ranger. $175. It penetrated 8 3/4 inches. $300. It penetrated through 71 layers. Here's the head after being shot into the MDF 3 times, and you can see it's just in pristine condition. There's no signs of wear whatsoever. Here's the Ranger after the durability test. It actually did fairly well, better than I expected. So this is a good opportunity for me to explain the scoring of the durability test if you're not familiar with it. It gets 20 points at maximum for the durability test. It gets 12 points if it makes it through 3 shots of MDF unscathed, and this did that. It did perfectly well through 3 shots of the 1/2 inch MDF. And then it gets 5 points total if it makes it through the steel plate 2 times unscathed. And so this did not make it through 2 times. It made it through 1 time perfectly well, and then the second time it lost a blade. So for the steel part, out of the 5 points, it gets 3.5. Because it made it through 1 time, it's 2.5, and then the second time it lost a blade, but it didn't lose both blades, and the tip and the ferrule are in great condition. And then because it lost a blade, it doesn't get to go on to the concrete test, which if a head passes that with flying colors, then it adds another 2 points. So the total for this score of the durability test is 15.5 for the Ranger. This is a test that I do for most mechanicals, especially rear deploying ones, to see what the entrance cut is going to be. And I have this hide stretched out really taut over this cardboard box. And then I'll measure the entrance hole as well as the exit hole. The entrance hole measured at 1 inch, and then the exit hole measured at just about the full cut size of just under 2.5 inches. So what'd you think of the Ranger? You know, I'm still kind of getting used to this new test procedure and scoring procedure, as I'm sure you are too. But man, this head did really well. And I think you'll find that as we go through and I'm testing more heads, I think you'll realize in comparison how well this head did compared to the others. You can check out the score sheet of last year and that Excel spreadsheet link that I put in the description box of the final video of 2021. That's the testing summary. And you can compare how this head did in many of the same tests and see. But it's the first to be scored in this new system that I have. And again, read about the description of this whole system and the scoring system and the testing in the description box of this or any video that I post in 2022 as well. But some of the areas that it really shined and scored really well. First of all, flight. Okay, now the weather here in Des Moines, it's like blowing like crazy. I mean, it's blizzard kind of conditions. The high today, I think, is 5 below 0 in the wind chill, and it's been like that for a few days. It's going to be like that for a few days. So I'm not going to be able to test this in terms of long-range shooting and that flight forgiveness. However, I don't usually do that for mechanicals anyway because I know how they fly, all right? They fly really well. So the highest score that a mechanical can get is 10, and that's when there's like almost no surface area exposed whatsoever. It's just literally like a field point, except maybe a little bit of blade showing. But with this much blade being exposed like that, I give it a 9. Now, out of my bow, flies perfectly well because I have shot it before at distance, so I just don't have that in video, but I give it a 9 in terms of flight. Then in sharpness, it did extremely well in that. In durability, it did very well through the MDF, and for a mechanical to make it through even one shot of the steel plate, and then the second shot losing a blade but keeping a blade, that was pretty impressive there too. And then the penetration, though, the penetration is where this thing really shined. I was blown away by how deeply it penetrated into the cardboard. I think that's the second deepest penetration of any head that I've tested. So that was really impressive, as well as the penetration through the gel. It did great. Okay, now the areas that it kind of got knocked a little bit in the scoring, the edge retention was not what it could be. Okay, it lost a bit of its edge after penetration test 1. It was still sufficient, but it did lose some scoring there. And then in terms of the penetration, okay, this is really kind of interesting, and it relates to the cut size. So it penetrated really well, but that's largely because of, okay, again, some of its strengths. It has this ability to collapse down to 0.7 inches of cut, okay, in diameter. So that's really nice when there's a hard bone impact. It keeps the blades from breaking, okay? I really like that. And I really like the way it deploys it with that internal inertia system, and you know, after the blades are compressed, when they hit, you know, a softer area, they can spring forward like that, okay? I love that. And I think that works really well in many hunting situations. However, in my testing on the opening, you saw when I did the opening through that stretched leather hide there, it did not open on impact. Now, by the back of the box, it opened to its full position, but it didn't have that initial cut, so it lost a little bit by not having a very big initial cut. But then in the penetration tests, the blades literally just collapsed pretty much all the way through the entire mediums. Now, I want to note, okay, these mediums don't have any soft spots in them. So these blades really expand when they hit, you know, kind of a soft spot after that internal inertia system is deployed. And so that's when they spring forward, and that would happen within an animal, but within a consistent medium like cardboard or like the gel, it didn't happen. So that helped the penetration to be really great. But with an animal, it is going to expand at least a bit more, okay? When it hits those softer areas, it's going to spring back up, and then, you know, it can collapse down a little bit if it hits a bone again. So that's just something to keep in mind, and it got docked a little bit in the cut size because of that. So in total, with the new algorithm that I have for scoring, the numerical score of the Ranger was 85.5, which just crossed the threshold of being in the category of 9 golden arrows. So congratulations, VIP, really well done. Look forward to testing more of your stuff.